Let's wait for the stream to fire up all across those fruited plains of the internet, and then we can go ahead and get started because the train wreck shall continue. We are going to be talking about the slow motion disaster that we're all watching in front of us as we speak, but we got to make sure we're alive and well. It looks like we're just about there, so let's go ahead and get started. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gruler. I am a criminal defense attorney here at the R&R Law Group in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have represented thousands of good people facing criminal charges. And throughout our time in practice, we have seen a lot of problems with our justice system. I'm talking about misconduct involving the police. We've got prosecutors behaving poorly. We've got judges not particularly interested in a little thing called justice, and it all starts with the politicians, the people at the top, the ones who write the rules and pass the laws that they expect you and me to follow, but sometimes have a little bit of difficulty doing so themselves. That's why we started this show called Watching the Watchers, so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. And we're grateful that you are here and with us today because we've got a lot to get into. We're going to, of course, smash right back into Kabul, just like Joe Biden did. And we're going to have to really break down what's happening here because a lot of train wreck activity was going on today. President Biden was out there giving a speech about COVID, but didn't answer much about what was going on in Afghanistan. For that, we have to turn to the Department of Defense. Secretary Lloyd Austin came out, gave us a couple sound bites that were also disastrous. We're going to also check in with what the Taliban happens to be doing with all of the U.S. military gear. And we're going to see what the scene looks like because apparently there are thousands of Americans that are still over there. And the U.S. government is just like, well, I mean, make your best attempt to get there and get on a plane. We're going to show you what the embassy from Kabul is actually saying now. If you're a U.S. citizen there, you're stranded. Numbers may be as high as 40,000 Americans. We still don't know what it is, but the U.S. government is really, really botching this. So we're going to go through it. Then we're going to change gears and we're going to talk about what Joe Biden actually did come out and talk about today. Not much, 15 minutes, had some words about COVID and masks and needed to wag his finger down at some governors like Arizona and Florida for not complying with whatever the CDC says. So he came out for about 15 minutes and then boop, turned his back and made a beeline right for the door. He was also evacuating from the press corps. Didn't want to be attacked by them. So no answers really from him. We do know that the federal government is now going to be rolling out and mandating vaccines for nursing homes. All of the employees, CNN broke that article. And we're also going to see what Joe Biden had to do. He was talking about booster shots. And so that is also something that is going to be rolling out. We're going to also check in with what's going on in Australia because their COVID crackdowns are also bananas. They're actually deploying troops if you're already not familiar with what's going on there. So we'll check out what Australia is doing. And then in our last segment, we got to check in with this doctor. Dr. Fiscus is this woman's name, and she came out of Tennessee. She was the state's top vaccination official, somebody who was saying we got to put jabs in everybody, and got into a little bit of political trouble over there. And so something happened. This dog muzzle, like literally a dog muzzle, showed up at her door. Oh my goodness, can you believe that? And so she was claiming that this was from those maniac anti-vaxxers who clearly are, have a couple screws loose up there. Turns out, no, that wasn't the whole story. A little bit of a hoax there. So we're going to go into that story as well. If you want to be a part of the show, as a reminder, Tuesdays, this is not Tuesday, it's Wednesday. Yesterday, we went long because my group today got shifted over to Wednesday. So it is going to be a little bit of a shorter show, compressed, but we're going to try to get to as many questions as we can. If you want to be a part of the show, watchingthewatchers.locals.com is the place to be. There's a form if you're a supporter over there where you can pick the topic and drop a question. If you're over on YouTube, you can submit a super chat. We are taking those. Here's what one yesterday looked like. That one popped in. It actually shows up on the screen, so that's pretty fun. So you can support the show either way. We'll try to get to all of the questions that we can. Quick shout outs over to the locals chat. We've got JM Chandalar, Josh Sesko. I see Vienticus Prime is over there, along with Paula MK Radase. today, and many others. Lynn Jin, I see, along with Sharon Quidney. Over on YouTube, we've got Zorro Vijaya, we've got Agnes, we have A Straight and Narrow, Sin City Jim, Robert Wells, Southern Bix, and many others. And so thank you all for being a part of the show. That's what makes the live stream so fun. All right, so let's get into the news of the day. Click that slide over. Okay, we're going to be talking about Afghanistan. Yeah, that's right. The Biden-Afghanistan debacle. It continues. It's going to continue for the foreseeable future, in large part because there's still an open question about whether there are tens of thousands of American citizens who are stranded over there in Kabul in Afghanistan. We've been hearing a lot of speculation about what the total number here is. And, sometimes if you are on one side of the political aisle, you might favor a number that serves your political ends. And the same might happen if you're on the other side of the political aisle. And so you have some difference of opinions about what the total number of stranded Americans are. But we do have some unity now in Joe Biden's America. CNN and Fox News are agreeing it's at least in the tens of thousands. So CNN gives us a little bit of a headline here. And Joe Biden's in trouble when CNN is flipping the script and doing an about face on him. He was clearly their candidate of choice. And now they're telling us that the Biden administration, faces daunting odds of pulling off a massive Afghanistan evacuation in just 2 weeks. This article was posted Wednesday, August 18th. Biden administration is still struggling to answer basic questions about whether it can successfully evacuate tens of thousands of Americans and vulnerable Afghans. They set themselves a deadline of August 31st, which is coming up very soon. On Tuesday, U.S. officials gave us some details. We talked about some of those yesterday at a White House press briefing. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said that they're relying on a commitment from the Taliban. We got to make sure that the Taliban stay happy because they have to allow for safe passage to the airport in Kabul. Otherwise, the American citizens are not going to be able to get there. So the Taliban, they've surrounded the entire airport. They control the entire capital. And so sort of relying on them to allow those tens of thousands of Americans who are citizens who were brought over there by this country to be a part of the war effort, to be a part of the nation building effort, to be a part of whatever they were doing over there. The U.S. government encouraged them, facilitated it, brought them over there in many cases. Should have an obligation to take them back. A lot of people will say, well, no, these are just Afghanis. No, they're tens of thousands of Americans, of American citizens. And the government has the utmost duty to make sure that American citizens' lives are protected. And it sounds like we're kind of relying on the Taliban to help facilitate this goal, according to Mr. Oxford, Jake Sullivan over there. So CNN is obviously... well, they're not really biased, but so we'll say they're pretty accurate. But Fox News is obviously clearly biased, but they're in total alignment with what CNN has to say. They say that the Taliban claims it's going to be more moderate, but the killings continue in Afghanistan. That's weird. I wonder why there may have been a misconception about that. Afghans are also skeptical of the Taliban's claims. This week, the Taliban is encouraging women to return to work and girls to go back to school, wear headscarves before they head out. But a new photo just popped up of a woman lying in blood. Picture around her. She was shot and killed for going out without a burqa. So there's some of those women's rights that the Biden administration is very excited about. Earlier on Tuesday, an Afghan former State Department contractor told Fox News that the Taliban fighters had set up checkpoints all throughout Kabul, in some cases beating civilians trying to get to the airport and escape the country. And as many, according to Fox News, as many as 11,000 Americans remain in the country as of Tuesday. Biden administration is scrambling to arrange flights. And we're going to take a look at what the U.S. Embassy, the actual U.S. government embassy in Kabul, has to say to those stranded Americans here in a minute. But let's go back to CNN now, because we have this little bit of a unity between CNN and Fox. Wow, what a beautiful country this is. Both say that Biden is a disaster. And now they are confirming it's at least in the tens of thousands. Might be multiple tens of thousands. Fox News says it might be 11,000 Americans. But the question is, now that the Taliban has surrounded the entire airport, well, how do they move anywhere? How do they even get over there in order to hop on an airplane to bail? Well, let's listen in with Clarissa Ward. She's over from CNN. We saw her earlier this week. She was the woman who on pre-Taliban day was able to not wear her hijab. Now that the Taliban have taken over, she is hijabbed up. And so we're going to listen in on what she has to say. She's telling us about the situation and what it looks like for just everyday average people who are trying to, get out of a war zone. Here she is.
We also were just accosted by people. John, it's so heartbreaking. Everybody coming up to us with their papers, their passports, saying, please, you know, I worked at Camp Phoenix, I worked at this camp, I was a translator, help me get in, help me get to America, help me get my CIV, my visa to get out of the country. And then the Taliban would just come through. At one stage, this one fighter just lifted his gun up in the air as if he was about to start firing rounds, so we had to run and take cover. And then, you know, the most frightening moment for our team came when our producer, Brent Swales, was taking some video on his iPhone. Two Taliban fighters just came up with their pistols, and they were ready to pistol whip him. And we had to intervene and scream, and it was actually another Taliban fighter who came in and said, no, 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 don't do that, they're journalists. But, I mean, really, you know, I've covered all sorts of crazy situations. This was mayhem. This was nuts. This is impossible for an ordinary civilian, even if they have their paperwork. No way they're running that gauntlet. No way they're going to be able to navigate that. It's very dicey, it's very dangerous, and it's completely unpredictable. There's no order. There's no coherent system for processing people, separating those with papers from those who don't have papers. And honestly, to me, it's a miracle that more people haven't been very, very seriously hurt.
Wow, ringing endorsement there from CNN. Wow, so it's never seen anything quite like it. All the disorder, all of the very, very smart people from Oxford and Yale Law School, and all the people who are, you know, very, very aggressive with making sure that the Taliban, you know, is inclusive and very diverse in their, I guess, totalitarian dictatorship. Where were they on this whole point? Where was all the contingency planning? Where was all of the very intellectual adults in the room that the country has been apparently screaming for over the last 4 years? Where were they on all of this? Not so good. Even CNN is upset about it. Now, on another show, they're going to play some of the same footage, but this gentleman is also very upset about it, saying that it is basically chaos, it's catastrophe. Miss Clarissa was earlier in the morning, and then this one was later this afternoon, about 2 p.m. Eastern time. Let's listen to see if the conditions have improved at all.
What are you hearing?
Chaos. Absolute chaos. Pandemonium. There is tens of thousands of people who have surrounded the airport, desperate to get in. There are Taliban checkpoints within 100 meters of U.S. Marines, and you're right, they're beating people in the crowds. I had a friend in the crowd last night who got beaten by Taliban soldiers with chains, and the Americans just have to stand there and do nothing. They have to stand there and watch it. The Americans are being forced to use tear gas, to fire warning shots. You know, by the way, every time I hear those gunfire go off, all I can think of is those bullets have to come down somewhere. People could be inadvertently getting killed just by that gun.
All right, so you saw the same images again, and I know it's probably easy to sit back and go, oh well, this is just more war propaganda. This is all the neocons out there who are clamoring to send them all back in to Afghanistan, and they're just going to be dragging us right back into war. The public sentiment has already shifted on this. There are polls out today saying that many Americans are supportive of now sort of, doing this massive surge to go in and clean this thing up rather than let this thing, smolder into chaos. And there might be good justification for that. If the Taliban now have, let's say, 10,000 Americans there, that's a pretty sizable American hostage presence, wouldn't you say? And so that sort of ties the U.S. government's hands in many, many ways. Now they have the ability to sort of dictate terms. I mean, think about the prior hostage negotiation crises that this country has been through. And now the Taliban has 10,000 of them? Not too good. So what is the U.S. government doing now to get them all out of there? Let's take a look at what the U.S. Embassy has to say. This is from Afghanistan, out of Kabul. This is posted August 18th, and here's what they say. They say that their location here is in Kabul, Afghanistan, which I don't think is accurate anymore. I think their location is basically a website now because there is no embassy there. Good going. U.S. government-provided flights are departing, they say. So this is, hey, I just happen to be a U.S. citizen. I'm a contractor. I went over there. I was doing, some sort of transitional work between the Afghan government, the U.S. government. I'm a citizen there. I've got my visa. Everything's fine. the evacuation happens urgently. Nobody knew that this whole thing was going to collapse instantaneously within basically a weekend. And so suddenly you're sitting there going, okay, well, the U.S. was here and there was security and order, and now the U.S. is not here, and I'm living in Talibanistan. Not so good. And so what do you do about that? Well, you say, well, I better look to the embassy. It's been like 4 days since we heard from the president on this thing on Monday. So maybe I can look to the embassy. Surely they've got it figured out now. We know that on Monday there were people falling out of Air Force airplanes who were hanging on to landing gear. So hopefully our very competent Department of Defense, U.S. Embassy, State Department, they've all got it figured out, right? Clearly it's been a few days, so finally, okay. So, oh, honey, let's go and check out what the U.S. Embassy says, because the Taliban are right down the street. Sounds like they might be knocking on our door next. Let's see what the update is. We go over here to the U.S. Embassy. This says the location is Kabul. Not really. U.S. government-provided flights are departing, this says. Okay, well, that sounds problematic. So I guess, honey, we better pack our bags. U.S. citizens and their spouses and unmarried children should consider traveling to HKIA, which is Hamid Karzai International Airport. And they give you some directions. Go to Camp Sullivan, then go to the South Traffic Circle, head 1 kilometer, turn right at Camp Sullivan. Please note that gate changes might change frequently. We're going to update you as necessary. By the way, in gigantic capital letters, the U.S. state government cannot ensure safe passage to the airport. So the last thing you really should be worried about is your gate change. Once you get to the airport, you can figure out your gate. The bigger problem is going to be making it into the property in the first place. They say further down the report that please be advised that a significant number of individuals have registered. Space on these flights is available on a first come, first served basis. So even if you do come, you make it through the Taliban checkpoints. What Clarissa said was a disaster. What the other guy said was a disaster. You're dodging bullets. You're dodging Taliban change. You finally make it in. Oh, sorry, flight's full. Oh, yeah, it's first come, first serve basis. You were a little bit too late. Sorry, you should have hurried last time. So you're going to have to sit there until we get a next plane that lands that may expire at the end of this month. We'll get to that in a minute. So they tell you, oh, no, you just may be required to wait at the airport for a significant amount of time until space is available. Okay, so at least you say, all right, fine. At least I can just pack up and get to the airport. At least if I get there, I'll be safe. I know that I'll get on an airplane and I'll be out of there soon enough. Perfect. All right. Well, they say don't call the embassy. We don't have any details or updates about the flight. So, okay, you can make it there. Who knows? They also say, by the way, don't travel to the airport until you've been informed by email that departure options exist. Okay, so now we're going to continue to provide updates to this message. So I guess just refresh your browser there if you're in Afghanistan. Well done. So now we've got a situation where apparently U.S. flights are departing, number one. So they're going. We've got a deadline coming up on August 31st. The U.S. government says, you better get your butts to the airport. But we can't make sure you get there safe. And you better hurry because it's on a first come, first serve basis. But also, don't leave yet until we tell you to leave. So it's just amazing. That's the planning from the U.S. Embassy. And you can go, the full link should be in the slides. But you can go pull the full order. That's their guidance from the U.S. government, from the brilliant intellectuals that thought this whole thing through. Well done. All right, so 10,000 Americans. Good luck heading to the airport. If you get there, maybe there's a flight, but don't leave yet. But you probably might want to because there's a deadline coming up August 31st. And the question is, well, you know that there's a deadline August 31st. You heard previously, because on yesterday's show, or maybe the day before that, we also heard from Jake Sullivan, NSA Oxford graduate, who is telling us that, well, look, we're going to try to get everybody out of here as soon as we can, but we're not going to make any commitments beyond August 31st because that's the deadline that Joe Biden set. That's what was negotiated with the Taliban. So now Jake Sullivan, well, we'll talk about that when we get there. August 31st is our cutoff date. And the reporters go, what? Excuse me? So another reporter asks again, yeah, that's basically what I said. Sorry. And then somebody else asked Jen Psaki about this later on in the day. And she confirms it as well. The one response should be from an American government would be, yes, we're going to protect every American citizen no matter what. We're going to do everything we can to take every American who is over there and bring them back to this country. Whether you can do it or not, right? That's what you say. And you actually do it if you're a competent, legitimate, moral government. but that's asking way too much. So at least just say the right thing and then botch it all in the background. They're not even doing that. They're just like, well, sorry, I don't know what to tell you. After August, you're on your own. So don't leave yet to come to the airport, but also flights are leaving, according to the embassy. So now, look, this is a very problematic situation. We've got a lot of Americans over there who are stranded that don't really know what to do. All sorts of conflicting responses. The U.S. government, though, at least the Department of Defense, they're on it. They're gonna solve this. This was all incorrect yesterday, but they got it figured out today, right? So we're gonna check in with Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, who is going to be asked the same question. Okay, Mr. Austin, Mr. Secretary of Defense, now that you know how this whole thing is unfolding, it's been a few days, you're going to get all of the Americans out of there, right?
We're going to get everyone that we can possibly evacuate it. And I'll do that as long as we possibly can until the clock runs out or we run out of capability.
And you heard at the very end that little clip, the reporter's like, again? Like, we heard it again? Until the clock runs out. We're going to do everything we can until the clock runs out. That's the deadline that the Taliban have given us. So, unfortunately, since they have 10,000 hostages, yeah, you're right. We don't really have much we can do here. Not much to negotiate about. They have 10,000 people. So, they've given us until August 31st, and that's all I got. We're going to run up to the clock. We're going to play our best game. Hopefully, we pull this one out. Lloyd Austin. Now, he cares a lot about lives, especially American lives. We know this because this is how he dresses when he goes to formal ceremonies to get his little pins and badges here, whatever that medallion is. Probably very important. I'm not trying to disrespect that medallion, but this is how he, this is how he thinks about his contingencies. Anytime he needs to go, sort of serve himself, he dons a mask. There might be 2 masks on under there. I don't even know. Also face mask shields as well, along with humiliating all of the rest of the, I guess maybe his support staff there. Not to be disrespectful to them, but this man is disrespecting the military. This man is disrespecting the entire United States government. He should be fired. Or he should actually resign, but he should be fired immediately for this. He's the Department of Defense secretary. 10,000 Americans are being abandoned behind enemy lines, and we're going to run it out until the clock runs out. Okay. That's our leadership here in this government. Outstanding. But the face masks, though, definitely want to make sure that our Marines and our men and women of the armed services are face masked up. Probably need some more bubble wrap and cellophane as well. So that's Lloyd Austin. Now, he gets asked another question. Somebody says, okay, hey, so you're the Department of Defense, America's most accomplished aspects is we've got a pretty powerful military. Sounds like, I guess your plan is that we're just going to negotiate with the Taliban and they're just going to, I guess, tell us whether or not they're going to give us our own citizens back. Here's Lloyd Austin.
And where do you take that? I mean, how far can you extend into Kabul? And how long does it take to flow those forces in to be able to do that?
So it sounds like you're saying this depends on diplomacy with the Taliban. That's it. That's our only option, is getting them to agree to do this.
Well, let me add something here, Helene.
He looks around. So it sounds like we're just negotiating with the Taliban. You know that whole policy, like America doesn't negotiate with terrorism and all that stuff. It sort of sounds like you just negotiate. He goes, well, he looks around. Well, good. It's a good point. General, it goes over to General Miley, and then he just, rambles about, we've got more contingencies and forces over here and all of this stuff. And so it was an absolute disaster. But you can understand why Lloyd Austin doesn't want to go back into Kabul or Afghanistan in the first place, largely because the Taliban have all of the U.S. military equipment now. They've got it all. They've got large swaths of it. So breaking, we got the Taliban now. They seized an A-29 Super Tucano light aircraft, attack aircraft. We got an MD-530F helicopter, which is a light military helicopter. Those have both been captured at another airport. Looks like in a different precinct, sort of. And so they're posing with these. Let's see what they've got here. They got some good loot here in this crate. Afghanistan, the Super Tucano was declared the winner of a light air support contract competition. So let's see. There was a bunch of these were bought in 2018 for $427 million. Yeah, so that's good. Those ended up over in Afghanistan. Pretty good. They conduct airstrikes. Good in combat. First time the Afghan military has dropped a laser-guided weapon against the Taliban. Well, not anymore. Now the Taliban have that airplane. So that's a good pickup. That's good loot. That's going to increase their armor quite a bit. Now the Super Tucano, it's also relatively inexpensive. Usually just goes for about $10 million. Price goes up, though, if it's a military equipped variant. Those are between $20 and $30 million. So, look, do these guys know how to fly this thing? No, of course they don't. Are they going to? Do you think this guy's going to be a pilot and hop in there and, go after Afghan people? Probably not, but that's okay because they have a $30 million aircraft there, which is a nice chunk of change. And it's very legitimizing, isn't it? Now they're building out their Air Force, and presumably they're going to be able to get some training from the Afghanistan pilots who just decided that we're Taliban now. As soon as they were knocking on the door, excuse me, Afghan Air Force. Yes, how can I help you? Oh, we're the Taliban. Oh, so am I. That's so weird. I just changed sides like 2 minutes ago. So, let me show you how to fly that thing. It's going to be a lot of fun. Get your guns. Let's go for a little loop-de-loo up there in the sky. That will complement their trips to the amusement parks that they were on earlier in the week. So that was a good pickup. Now, MD-500 also is a pretty good pickup here. This cost $2.4 million. That's been in production for quite some time. This is produced here by the United States, so that's a nice helicopter. And it's about $3 million a pop. Been around for quite some time, and they've got one of those too, so that'll be fun. Over here, they've got a whole, looks like they got a Black Hawk, actually. So Black Hawks, we know those are pretty expensive. Cost to the Air Force, another about $10.2 million, primarily being used by the United States. And the Taliban, they picked one up over at the Kandahar airport. We can see what that looks like.
دا دا ولاړه د سبا څنګه ان شاء الله هغه طرف ته ولاړ دي دې طرف ته راسمولې سره دا دې څو ولاړې ده یو هو
that's one. So that's the first one. That's number one. Oh, there's number two. Got number two now. Oh, and let's see if there's anything else. Is there anything else over there? Oh, yeah, look, number 3 and number 4. Oh, yeah, so 4 Black Hawks. Oh, that's good. We got 4 Blackhawks now in possession of the Taliban, and that's just in one video that lasted about 15 seconds. So presumably there's a lot more of that is floating around Afghanistan and now in possession of the Taliban. Well done there, Secretary Austin. Speaking of Secretary Austin, some U.S. senators are unhappy with him, as they should be. They sent a letter to him today that says, dear Secretary of Defense, a couple problems that we have. We got grave concern regarding the status of those U.S. military gear that was left behind as a result of our poorly executed withdrawal. We're horrified to see the Black Hawks in the hands of the Taliban, UH-60. Highly unconscionable that high-tech military gear paid by the U.S. is going to end up in their hands. Here is what we want. We request detailed information about all the following. Full account of all the equipment provided to Afghan armed forces in the last year. All military equipment, wherever it came from. All U.S. equipment that remains operational. A list of what military equipment that has been seized by the Taliban. An assessment of how long it will take the Taliban to use each of the captured gear. An assessment on the likelihood that they're going to seek to work with Russia, Pakistan, Iran, China for training, fuel, infrastructure necessary to use it. Any efforts by the administration to, stop any of this garbage, signed off on by Grassley, Tillis, Haggerty, Johnson, Scott, Braun. Let's see who else here. Tuberville. Okay, so the U.S. Senate is on it, and they're going to be asking some questions. And this is just the first part of it. There should be audits on all of this. Where did it all come from? Who authorized the contracts? Who got the contracts? Make sure that the gear is as accounted for as we can, and then prosecute the people who embezzled the funds. It's the only way there's going to be any justice here. But there won't be, because it's all just a giant slush fund, isn't it? Now, the DOD was out talking about not saving Americans. But the State Department, well, they're really busy here. They're actually getting down to some hard work. They're making sure that this is at the forefront of the world's concern. And so they drafted a letter today, the State Department, the Biden State Department. They wrote a very stern letter, and they got some agreement from other people throughout the world. A lot of different people are involved in this. Albania, Argentina, Australia chimed in, Canada, Brazil, El Salvador, Ecuador, New Zealand, Norway, Senegal, Switzerland, the UK. Oh my gosh, they're asking for the Taliban to protect the rights of women and children. Isn't that nice? It's just really, really powerful. Let's see here what they wrote in their statement. August 18th, a joint statement on the situation of women and girls in Afghanistan. And so they're going to put this out for immediate release, which is really good. Hopefully the Taliban press corps gets a copy of this. The White House is posting this, forwarded from the State Department. Noted, we are deeply worried about Afghan women and girls, their rights to education, work, and freedom of movement. We call on those in positions of power and authority across Afghanistan to guarantee their protection. Has she been watching the news at all the last couple days? That's the Taliban now. Positions of power and authority across Afghanistan. That's the Taliban. And we already know how they view these issues. We talked about it yesterday on the show. So they say that Afghan women and girls deserve all of this stuff and the abuse should be prevented. Okay. They're going to monitor closely how any future government ensures the rights and freedoms that have become an integral part of women in Afghanistan over the last 20 years. That's great. That's good. So this woman is going to be monitoring them now. Now that they have thousands, tens of thousands, arguably, of American citizens that are basically pseudo hostages right now because there's no way to get them out of there. What is she going to do about it? What is this lady going to do about any of this? Here's her stern warning to the Taliban.
Yesterday, the Taliban held a press conference where they claimed they intend to allow women to work and study, but only within what they called their, quote, frameworks. The United States and the international community will be vigilant in monitoring how any future government in Afghanistan ensures the rights and freedoms that women and girls in that country have come to expect.
Oh my gosh.
The United States joined 20 other nations this
Gemeinschaft is.
Oh my gosh. So this woman is beyond, I don't even know what to say. You know, I try not to be mean on this show, but she has not a serious person or just not very intelligent. I don't know what she's doing. I think this might be cosplay. This might be actually a cosplay clip. I'm not real sure. It says she's the deputy secretary. She's got a name that confirms she's the deputy secretary. But I don't know what she's talking about because the Taliban, that we've got 20 years of experience fighting, that we know a lot about them and know exactly why we went there in the first place, was to sort of push them back and to make sure that America could spread American values and democracy and liberty and civil liberties for women and children and the human beings who want that in Afghanistan. We know exactly what the Taliban is. And so they just took over the country. And this actor, I think she's an actor, or she's on I don't know what she's doing, but that's okay. Good effort. Now, you'll notice in the State Department's little written statement, a lot of countries signed on, like Canada, New Zealand, and Ecuador, and all of these other countries. But a couple countries didn't. May have remembered from that list that Germany wasn't on there. Now, Germany had some differing opinions on what's going on here. And we learned yesterday that Joe Biden wasn't even calling anybody. Hillary Clinton talked to the Canada guy, and Joe Biden's just kind of asleep at the wheel. But this is a politician from Germany who apparently is going to be sort of the heir apparent to Angela Merkel, so maybe the next chancellor of Germany. Here's what he had to say about the U.S. involvement and what this means to NATO. Let's see what he has to say, and then we're jumping into questions next. So get those fingers warmed up. Here it is from Germany.
Gemeinschaft, es ist evident, dass dieses Engagement der internationalen Gemeinschaft nicht erfolgreich war. Es ist das größte Debakel, das die NATO seit ihrer Gründung erleidet. Und es ist ein Epochenwechsel, vor dem wir stehen.
Says this is the biggest debacle in German. You may have picked that up. In German, the biggest debacle that NATO has ever seen, ever. And it's an epical change. I think he's right about that. And the country is rightfully upset about it, as we should be. All right, let's take a look at some questions over from watchingthewatchers.com. news.locals.com. And a reminder, I got to move through these questions quickly. So if I don't get to you, I apologize. We've got Drearier Spider here, says, Rob, while I don't like to see my country get embarrassed on the world stage, we have no choice but to expose the gross incompetence of the Biden regime. Exactly right. Biden has no mandate to get most of his draconian agenda through, thanks to collapsing polls at the court of public opinion. Starts with brave folks willing to put the truth out like yourself. Thank you for your tireless work. You're a great commentator, great lawyer, great American, proud to support. Well, thank you, Drearier Spider. That's really nice, man. What a nice comment. Or woman, or whatever pronoun you prefer. We're very accommodating here. But I'm just joking. That was a really nice comment. Thank you for that. You know, and that's sort of what we're doing, right? We're not going to let them get away with this. We're not going to let them paper over this. Their faces have to be rubbed in this. That's the only recourse that we have. If they're going to come out here and do this to us over the last 20 years, there needs to be penalties for it. And it can't be just another, well, sorry about that. We'll do better next time, and paper over the whole thing. There need to be consequences for it, and everybody who is involved with it should pay. Republicans and Democrats alike. They should all pay for it because they were all involved in it. Anybody who misled there are mothers and fathers and sons and brothers and daughters and sons who are missing their loved ones over this fake baloney war that we've been sold with no legitimate exit plan. And there are still tens of thousands of Americans over there. This is insane that there aren't already firings. All right. We've got Sergeant Bob says, Sergeant Bob is rarely speechless, but on this segment, he is. It is shocking. It is actually shocking that this is our government. We have John Berkelis Halgren is here, says, is there a national stress index? Do we have anything that measures general levels of anxiety? I don't remember seeing people this continually anxious since the threat of global thermonuclear war with the USSR. Afghan, COVID, election weirdness. Anyway, take care of yourselves. John, you're absolutely right about this. You know, and I was actually speaking to somebody who was talking about the catastrophic consequences that we are still bringing upon ourselves with all of this. She called it sort of an attachment syndrome, where you just, every single time you have this trauma, you sort of attach it a little bit, and people are going to start getting very sick. We're already seeing it. We saw the COVID breakdowns over the masks. We're seeing it over the vaccinations. People are going to it's going to continue to concentrate until people start snapping even further. You're right. Take care of yourselves. Robute says, Biden is such a horrible president. Anyone watching the Watchers community would be a better president than Biden. Joe should retire and go spend time with Hunter. Yeah, that's what he should do. LT13 says, Millie like vanilla in Austin today at the press conference. Millie in Austin. Yeah, Millie Vanilli. Yeah, it was terrible. It was really bad. Ice Wolf says, I always thought it was between me and my doctor, whether any medicine is right, not me and the government. That was on the next segment. Sergeant Bob says, got my voice back. As to Sleepy Joe, never try to teach a pig how to sing. It will only frustrate you and annoy the pig. We have this one from John Halgren, says, if we, quote, go back to Afghanistan, you can't just clean things up. You'd have to have a group ready to reclaim the country. That group doesn't exist. Afghanistan is stuck with Sharia law until they decide it's over. Yeah, and at this point, how do you sort of bolster or muster enough morale to make a real significant offensive back into Afghanistan? And how do you do that if there's 10,000 Americans who are sort of in the purview of Taliban control? Your hands are totally tied. This thing is beyond. You're basically, at that point, your only solution is diplomacy with the Taliban, which is maybe where they were going with this all along. Kenny 1B says, New York Times reported that the intelligence community correctly predicted the swift collapse as the U.S. withdrew. They correctly predicted that the military would essentially disband, give no resistance. New York Times concluded Biden ignored the intelligence warnings. I've seen those headlines as well, and I don't have anything to disagree with that. I think that what you're going to see here is a lot of finger pointing. I still think that the DOD, the generals, any of people in the intelligence community that I guess didn't tell us about the crumbling facade that Afghanistan was up until this point, they're all responsible for it. They sold us the idea that Afghanistan was not this bad. And it was. So they were selling us something that was a fraud. They should be held accountable for that. Let's see. Everyone needs to look up and notice very few women and children in those planes. That was from a no-namer. Want to know says, Rob, the state said embassy is at the airport. Oh, okay. So that one is there. So maybe they are in Kabul for the time being. Vienticus Prime says, 2020, the year of no hindsight, has led to 2021, the year of nothing but failure. But then again, it's not like someone has anything to gain from all these failures or anything. It's not like many people's lives were just tossed away to justify military action before. No, there's obviously nothing to see here. This is all just incompetence. Yeah, I see where you're going with that, Vienticus. I'd be curious as to what your prognostications about the underlying motivation might be. We have Screw the NSA says, is the news of the Taliban offensive covered in Afghanistan? If not, then I don't understand. Why didn't the contractors with the U.S. leave as soon as the Taliban were so successful? Well, I think it happened within 4 days or so. That's why nobody really was prepared for it. That's why people were hanging off of planes. Now, many of the contractors are going to get killed via lack of foresight and a horrible withdrawal. Considering the debacle, it shows how all the intelligence agencies are useless, should be disbanded. I think that's a pretty popular opinion now. Peely Wally says, watching the most voted for president ever lead this incredible mess is simply mind-boggling. What a ridiculous war it was. What a terrible waste of life. I had a friend that lost his life out there in 2009. Nothing like a long war to cover up the unusual happenings around September 11th. That's from Peely Wally. You know, you kind of do have to question everything a little bit more these days, don't you? Because we know how blatant the government is with their lies. You sort of have to question it all, especially if they told us for 20 years that, oh, there's progress in Afghanistan. No, we got a mission there. It's all good. Until it's not. Then it all comes crumbling down. Where else is there just a shallow facade ready to shatter? Paula MK says, so for 4 years of the previous administration, we had no foreign conflict. Peace deals in the UAE, record economic growth, secure borders in 8 months. Biden has blown out the economy. We got sick migrants flooding in at our borders. Horrid conditions. Destroyed American life in Afghanistan, not to mention the civilians. Need I go on? We have to ask ourselves why. Because people got offended on Twitter? Yeah, it is a curious thing, isn't it? Very, very curious. Thank you for that, Paula MK. Let's take some super chats over here. We had a couple. We got several of them coming in. We've got Clifford Barnes says, Rob, could Uncle Joe send the squad over there to tune in the Taliban? They're full of answers. Well, yeah, I mean, they should go over there and they should, just sit them down and have a conversation about Talibanic supremacy. Maybe once they learn about privilege, they'll be a little bit more reasonable. That would be nice. Brody Z says, can we call a mulligan on this presidency? We are stuck in this weird Twilight Zone episode with an old dirty sock calling the shots. We're just getting started, folks. We're in year one. We haven't even crossed a full 12 months yet. This is terrible. Alex Bogey says, biggest mistake analysts have brought up was abandoning the Bagram Air Base. It was much easier to defend since it was in the mountains instead of a city. Also said, oh, very cool. So Alex also says, told my rep to form a committee to investigate. Yeah. There's going to be all sorts of tactical decisions that were made, and I'd be curious what the actual standards are there, right? Is there a gross negligence standard in the military? I don't know what that is. If you make a decision, like in this case, how do we decide that this was gross negligence, that this was, criminal behavior, or there was something here that was more serious than just a whoops? How do you define what that is? Be curious. But very good to hear that, Alex. Appreciate the support here. Eddie Oliver is here, says, Rob, I'm a Gulf War era veteran, the first invasion of Iraq, and I'm utterly horrified by what I'm seeing. This is a complete and utter insanity. None of this makes any sense. Says, I know Biden picked his people based on the color of their skin and whether or not they were trans, but nobody can be this inept! ! Yeah, Eddie, I don't know, right? Is it just incompetence, or is there something a little bit more nefarious here? I don't know what's going on here, but thank you for your support, Eddie, as always. Another one from you was, I was 82nd Airborne Division. We could secure that airport easily in a couple hours. It's almost like Biden is failing intentionally. I tend to believe that, right? I do believe that the actual U.S. military is a competent thing, but the morons at the top of it, all of the double, triple maskers with the face shields, they don't know what they're doing. They're playing a fake game show. They think that this is like Twitter or something. It isn't. The State Department can't send nasty grands over to the Taliban and think that they care one whit about it. Unless they're just detached from reality. Unless they're just, I don't know who she's talking to. But that's not what the rest of us are talking about. It's ridiculous. We have Stephen Farrington is here, says, I love Robert Gruler. Well, I love Stephen Farrington. Thank you, Stephen. We have a couple other ones. Cope Stetic says, Biden knows the Taliban are excellent mask enforcers. It's to help fight COVID. Trust him. He knows what he's doing. Well, you know, I made this point yesterday. You know, those burqas are pretty much full body masks, which will cover you head to toe from COVID. So maybe they're onto something. Maybe Joe Biden wants to bring in those Afghanistani refugees and maybe install Sharia law here. Who knows? We got another one from Actual Izzy, says, hey, Rob, watching for a few months now and watch almost every night. The clips I miss, I listen to on my commute to work. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Actual Izzy. I appreciate that. Glad you're here. Glad you just joined us and stuck around. I do appreciate it. Curtis Bartle is here, says, distraction from real voting. Go Arizona. Yeah, there's going to be a lot more news coming out of Arizona, I think, here at the end of this month, I think was the deadline, August 31st. I could be wrong about that. Eddie Oliver says, we don't need diplomacy. We just need to take the airport, the key to the withdrawal. It's the only asset needed. There are many places around the globe that we secure surrounded by an enemy presence. Think Guantanamo Bay. Yeah, and I've also seen a lot of that, right? I'm not a military expert, but by any stretch, but a lot of people have said, certainly, if there was a will to go in and secure that airport and take control of that and take control of the city, that the U.S. could absolutely do that. But there is no will to do that from this administration. Now, as this continues to unfold, as we continue to see more and more horror, more and more stories of 10,000s of Americans who can't get out of the country, you may see Joe Biden and his administration have to do an about face on this and say, yeah, all right, we're going to go in there because they have no leverage at this moment. The Taliban has all the leverage. The Taliban can just wait out until August 31st comes and goes, and then they've got whatever remainder of American citizens are there. And then what move does Joe Biden have after that point? What if there's an American citizen there on September 30th that says, you know what, this is awful. I need to get out of here. Can you help me? What did they say? No, we told you to get on a plane by August 31st. Sorry. It's what they're conveying right now, and it sounds awful. All right, thank you for those super chats. We're going to wrap up with a couple more here from locals. Kenny1B says the Taliban can easily shell, mortar, launch artillery strikes on the crowds of people at the airport, but they have not. It would be a bloodbath, but the Taliban has refrained. Right. So they know they have the upper hand. They're being very diplomatic, and we'll see if that holds. Paula MK is here. Did you see Stephen Colbert saying that we have our very own Taliban on the Capitol? Must have missed that memo. Well, he would say something like that because he's not very intelligent. We have Kenny1B says Taliban has captured an air force, yes, but operating, fueling it, all that has little to no ability. Wouldn't be too concerned about them using abandoned aircraft in an offensive manner. I think that's a good point, Kenny1B. I think the bigger issue is, are they going to work with China? Are they going to work with the Afghan, the military? Is Iran going to funnel them resources so that they can use those equipments? I don't know. We'll see. LT13 says Taliban about to have a Chinese yard sale. There you go. With their new 4 Blackhawks. We've got Nadarb says, if you have time, 45-second video of all the guns and whatnot left behind. I'll cue that one up for another show, Nadarb. I probably have seen it. There's a lot of them going around. Government used deals. You can get a helicopter here for, oh, look at that. It's a deal. Slightly used helicopter, captured only once, $2.25 million. A bargain. Taliban discount. Love that. Kenny B says, the rank and file military have little faith and trust in Austin. First forcing them to take woke training and now a military blunder. Austin is probably out soon. Yeah, I think so too. He's got to go. No way that he can stick around. Look, 2G came in with a super chat, says, LOL, Curtis is probably right. Distraction from Arizona. In the next segment, we're going to get to COVID, which I think is a distraction from Afghanistan. So we are sort of stacking them up here a little bit. Tager Witziffy says, do you think the Taliban got on the planes to the USA? Probably. Did you see the plane? I don't think they were checking any papers. And then Beth Coddington says, hi, Robert. I will pray for all Americans here and worldwide. I hope many will join me. And I think that's a great point to leave off on that segment. Thank you for that, Beth. Very, very nice point. And I agree with you completely, right? As much as we can rub our incompetent leaders' faces in their debris, well, we got to remember that, we still have many people, American citizens over there and Afghani citizens who are good people that are all in a world of hurt right now as a result of our own incompetent government. And so we got to just remember, as we're analyzing these stories, we do so with a little bit of humanity and hope and pray and encourage the people who are doing the good work there are still many, many thousands of competent Americans right now who are working very hard to get people to safety. We got to respect them. They're going to do amazing work in spite of the incompetence that exists. And so we want to continue to wish them love. Great questions. Thank you for all the support from locals and from watching thewatchers.locals.com, which I already said, and from YouTube. Great super chats from Beth, Tager with Ziffy, several of them from many of you, Eddie Oliver, Cope Stetic, and we have Stephen Farrington. Thank you so much, everybody, for all of that support. All right, so we're going to move on into the next segment. We're going a little bit fast today because short on time, just a smidge, but we're going to make it. Biden came back out today talking COVID. It's booster shot season. So you can get on so it's a subscription plan here. So you can just keep those things coming. It's not Amazon Prime yet, but we'll get there. The U.S. is going to begin wide distribution of booster shots next month, saying that the vaccine protection actually wanes over time. This was posted on August 18th here by Berkeley Loveless Jr. over at CNBC, says the U.S. is going to begin distributing these shots. They announced this on Wednesday. They say it's now, quote, very clear that immunity starts to fall after the initial 2 doses. And when the dominance of the Delta variant, they're saying we're starting to see more reduced protection against mild and moderate disease. That came over from CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky, who now runs the country. She's the acting FDA commissioner also acting FDA commissioner, joined in on the conference. As a result, U.S. agencies are going to offer those booster shots starting September 20th, 8 months after their second dose. And so, a lot of activity there. Joe Biden came out, gave I think a 15-minute speech, which was the second speech that he gave this week with no answers, no questions or answers. So booster shots are in full effect. Thank you, Joe. We also have now new mandates coming out that's going to require the nursing homes, if they haven't gotten the booster shots or any of the prior shots, got to go get them. Now, if you're a nursing home employee, you're going to see the federal government, that's a federal government, come into many local state facilities and mandate you have to do what we say. Otherwise, you don't get any money. Oh, it's the power of the purse. We're going to learn about that. The Biden administration is set to require nursing homes to get their staff vaccinated or lose federal funds. They're going to direct all nursing homes, require all staff to be vaccinated. Otherwise, no Medicare money, no Medicaid funding. The officials told CNN. President Joe Biden announced Wednesday he's going to do this, make vaccination a condition for nursing homes to participate in Medicare. The move represents a significant escalation in Biden's campaign to get Americans vaccinated and the tools he is willing to use, marking the first time he has threatened to withhold federal funds in order to get people vaccinated. And we've said this for some time. The federal government, because we have a system of federalism where we've got federal executive authority and then we have states that have their own executive authority, and we've got the distinction between the two. The feds can't come in and mandate that states do certain things, but they do it differently. They do it very conveniently using the power of the purse, which we're going to talk about on the next slide. You do what we say, otherwise you don't get any money. Now, why is that problematic? It's because as a state citizen, you got to pay your taxes still. So you pay into that coffer and they just keep it. They don't give any of it back to you. So the states, anytime that the federal government dangles the credit card around, they just come like little sheep, to the trough to gobble it up. And why shouldn't they? Because they paid for it in the first place. So that's how they're going to force all of these private employees to get vaccinated, using the power of the purse, or lose your job. Now, I've been saying this for a long time, that we're watching a cascade of dominoes rolling around this country. We're seeing it in New York City. That started there with the key to NYC, the Vax Pass. They pick that up, send that over to San Francisco. They're mandating it now. Private employees, private businesses have to comply with their regulations. Now, the federal government is getting in on the game. We knew it was coming. The dominoes just keep rolling down the pike. Now, this one's very curious because according to this article from CNN, about 40% of workers there are not vaccinated yet. So 1.3 million people are working in nursing homes. More than 15,000 nursing homes participate in Medicaid and Medicare, and 40% of those people aren't vaccinated. They've had months to get it. They know how important it is. They know that they work in nursing homes. They know, their employers know, the nursing home attendees know The residents know. Everybody knows vaccines available. Policies all over the place. Dr. Anthony Fauci has been reaching through your camera for the last 18 months, smashing your head about COVID all day. As soon as the vaccine came out, he just changed the channel. Get the vaccine. Joe Biden's doing it. Rochelle Walensky's doing it. They're all smashing our heads into the vaccine. They've all become vaccine salesmen everywhere you look. Everybody is. They all know about it. 40% of them, not going to take it. They don't want it. Maybe they've got a good reason. And maybe if the federal government mandates it, they just say, we're going to work somewhere else. We don't need to be here. We're going to go elsewhere. We're not going to work here anymore. Then what happens to all of the nursing home residents? All of the people who need help now have 40% less staff. Or let's say even 10% of them leave. That is a catastrophe. There are going to be unintended consequences from all of this, which might be the point. Okay, how are they getting this through legality-wise? How does this work? Well, they use the power of the purse. This is how they're going to cram this down all of our throats. This is how the federal government is going to cram this down your throat and my throat using this technique right here. It's called the power of the purse. The ability to manipulate and control actions of another group by withholding funding or putting stipulations on the use of the funds. We're not going to give you the money, or if we do, you have to use it this way. It can be used positively by giving extra funding, or negatively by removing funding for something that basically eliminates the organization. The power of the purse is most often utilized with a government that does not have executive power, but does control budgets and taxes, which is exactly how our system is set up. Here in the United States, it's been used to compel states to pass laws in cases where Congress does not have the desire or the constitutional power to make it a federal matter. The most well-known example of this is the drinking age. Congress passed a law, said we're going to withhold 10% of federal funds for your highways if you don't raise the drinking age to 21. U.S. Supreme Court said, yeah, no problem at all. Congress, they couldn't change the drinking age themselves because the 21st Amendment gave control of that to the states. In 2009, they considered the same thing using texting while driving. So they can do that. They're doing that right now with Medicaid. Tell your employers, your employees to go get vaccinated. Otherwise, no Medicaid money. And that's a lot of money for these places. So now you either get vaccinated or find new employment because the federal government is reaching its disgusting hands into everybody's business. Now, here is Joe Biden mumbling like his mouth is full of marbles, trying to sloppy his way through this speech. Here he is talking about feds authorizing the federal government now to come into your local schools. You'll notice that many different states like Florida and Arizona are out there saying, hey, lunatic federal government, we don't want to follow your guidelines. We have our own data, our own scientists. We have our own local communities. We know how we want to run our business. We know how we want to run our schools, which are not in Washington, D.C., surrounded by all of your incompetence. They're local. We know what we want to do. And so our local communities have decided that they're going to pursue things a certain way. And governors have made decisions to enforce the will of the people in many different areas. And now the federal government that knows better is going to come in here and tell you how to live your life and run your school and how your school, your local school, should run things according to their guidelines that were created by some bureaucrat many, many thousands of miles away in some cases. Here is Joe Biden trying to do his best. Second time this week.
Last week, I called school superintendents in Florida and Arizona to thank them for doing the right thing and requiring masks in their schools. One of them said, we teach science, so we follow the science. The other said, they have a guiding principle, students first. I just couldn't agree more with what they both said. And that's why today I'm directing the Secretary of Education, an educator himself, to take additional steps to protect our children.
Yeah, what?
This includes using all of his oversight authorities and legal action, if appropriate, against governors who are trying to block and intimidate local school officials and educators. And as I said before, if you aren't going to fight COVID-19, at least get out of the way of everyone else who's trying. All
right. He's going to fall over any minute now. It's really, really, really sad. Stumbling all over himself. What a joke. Okay, so he's out there now saying, oh, the Department of Education. If you're already upset a little bit that they're going to be using the power of the purse to mandate that certain nursing home employees go get a jab that 40% of them don't want to get, that might be problematic, but maybe you let that slide. It's a nursing home, you say. Maybe you're concerned a little bit about the federal government seizing property from people, saying that's our house now because you can't have any control of it. The people who are in your residence not paying rent, you can't kick them out. It's our house. It's not your house anymore. If you're concerned about that, well, you might say, well, it's COVID a little bit, and so maybe it's a couple more months. Maybe they'll survive. Now, though, you've got kids and you're saying, well, I'm tired of little Johnny sitting in classroom for 6 hours a day wearing a mask over his face. I have some problems about this. We know what's going on in our local communities. We want to go out and make sure that Johnny, who's already been robbed of a year of school, who's already been having to strap stuff around his face, can't, go out and play recess, can't go play on the jungle gyms. His whole year of his life has been stripped away from him, but we're going to rectify it this year. We're going to solve these things locally in our communities. Joe Biden comes out and says, no, you're not. Oh, the hell, you're not. No, first of all, if you do anything with funds, if you start moving those funds around, if DeSantis moves funds or Ducey moves funds, the federal government is going to come back in with the power of the purse, and we're going to refund them. We're going to give the people who are violating local state law money so they can just continue to break the law of elected state officials. The federal government is encouraging state schools to break the laws of state governments. It's outright lawlessness. And then he comes back out, which he's used to that because he's just violating whatever the Supreme Court says about the CDC eviction moratorium as well. So in addition to that, now he's saying we have to mask the kids up. And he is warning the governors and warning the schools that the Department of Education will use their lawful authorities to come and investigate you and come theoretically prosecute you. Use whatever latitude he has, he says. So he's empowering yet another department here. Just like the CDC took over property rights, the Department of Education is going to take over your schooling rights. And they're going to come down and just start slowly using this power of the purse, just like they're doing with the nursing homes. You'll see it in the schools. You'll see it in the hospitals. You'll see it everywhere until they get their way. And you've got to continue to pay your taxes as they continue to tighten the grips, as the institutions around us fail. Pay your taxes, comply with the rules. The government's just going to gobble it all up. So that was Sleepy Joe Biden out there stumbling through that speech. Now, look, on Monday, he was very busy. There was a lot of activity. He came out. He gave us an 18-minute speech. He's got a little bit tired as the week went on. And so on Monday, he didn't stick around to give us any answers to any questions. No questions. Remember, he slammed his book and just walked out of the room like faster than you would evacuate from Kabul. Now he is back here. He just gave us 15 minutes here on COVID. It's now Wednesday. So we're all saying, okay, look, Afghanistan has calmed down a little bit. We've got earthquakes in Haiti. We've got now COVID resurgence all over the country. Joe, strong leader. You've been around here for 40 years. You know how this works. You're the only adult that America has. We know that the last administration was a bunch of children. They were, well, it's looking like they were a lot more competent than you now. But anyway, forget about them. Guide us through this, Joe. Stick around for questions. Joe, we have a question.
God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you.
Buy America, turns the back, and makes a beeline right for the door. And if that looked familiar to you, if that sounded like, oh, yeah, Rob, is that the same clip you played earlier? No, it's not the same clip. It's a different clip. This is the other clip from Afghanistan. This was on Monday. Here he is.
And all brave Americans serving in harm's way.
Sorry, no questions, no answers. Gotta go. It's nap time. It's Jello time for Joe. All right, and so that's what's going on in America. Quick check-in what's going on in Australia. Saw this article earlier. Unprecedented police operation. So if you're concerned about where this is going, I'm not sure we're going to get to this level. But maybe this is where we're going. We've got unprecedented police operation. Posted here August 16th says that the New South Wales Police, they've issued nearly 600 infringement notices or fines, 579 infringement notices. They had 452 new COVID cases. And so the police are just going around. You can see these two knuckleheads here on horses that are clearly social distance away from everybody. They're out there on beaches, just patrolling everybody. They've got their face masks on. So these are mounted police part of the public health order compliance operation. So that's nice. Let's see here. They conducted 3,800 welfare checks to see if residents were following stay-at-home orders. So when I think of a welfare check, I think that means that they're actually going to people's houses, knocking on your door, just making sure you're home there. Good. I'm glad you're here. Don't you think about leaving. In Australia, Afghanistan might be more free. I don't know. You might be able to actually, leave. I don't know. On COVID, one COVID positive man breached the health order. He was unable to provide a reason for vacating his home. So they go around there knocking on everybody's door. One guy just leaves. Sir, why did you leave your house? Well, I don't know, because I'm a human being and I like to go do things with my life, not be locked up like a caged animal in a government-imposed prison. That's why I left. Well, you can't do that. That's illegal. Go back home. All right. That's Australia. Here we've got the police. This guy, probably could lose a couple pounds. Might be better for COVID. COVID is not good if you're carrying some extra pounds. So he could probably lose that. I'd probably lose the mask, lose some weight, and be much better off. But whatever. Police conduct a public health order. So he's going around conducting public health compliance checks in Sydney, Australia. That's that guy. Now, these violations, $1,000, $5,000 for breaches of self-isolation rules. Perceived loopholes have been closed, including removing the phrase of recreation. So you can't get outside for that essential reason anymore. So they've got, and listen, Operation Stay at Home is now in effect. It started August 16th. 1,400 additional highway patrol officers, 800 Australian Defence Force troops, 500 soldiers are dispatched, 300 already deployed. So it's probably see something like that, right? The National Guard might be instituted or something. Wouldn't surprise me for a minute. Let's take a look at some questions here over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com and see what we've got here coming in. Let me cue some of these up because we jumped ahead just a little bit. All right, we're almost there. Couple more. There it is. Here's our first question. It's from Pfizer. Pfizer joined in. Pfizer says everyone should get the booster shots and have vaccine passports. Totally not a grift. Yeah, just get them. It's like a subscription model. You just press the easy button and boom, new shots arrive at your doorstep. We looked at Moderna yesterday. Remember that on the show? Went through the different quarters from Moderna. They went from $157 million in revenue in September 2020 to $4.5 billion in June 2021, I think. Pretty good. Nice business model if you can get it. Sergeant Bob is here, says Sleepy Joe tries the shiny red ball. Sorry, the shiny gold ball in the Mideast will outshine. Yeah. So I totally agree with you, Sergeant Bob. It's like, oh, man, Afghanistan is awful. So let me go out and do something else that's kind of awful, but not as bad, that a lot of people on my side really like. So I'm going to go mandate something for the nursing homes. I'm going to go talk about booster shots so that everybody goes, okay, but not so fast there, Joe. We know what you're doing. We can see it. We have Robert. Apparently I submitted this comment. So, this is fake. I didn't say this. I love the way Joe Biden is doing. Best president ever. These COVID restrictions are remarkable, and I think they should be even stricter. I look forward to supporting Kamala in 2024. Robert Gruler, ESQ. Folks, I didn't say that. I never submitted that form. That is identity theft right there. That's a crime. The DOJ should look into that. Oh, but they're incompetent. They'll never find you. You're good. Yeah, whatever you need. You're good to go. The Enticus Prime says, I can't wait until everyone's required to get 3 shots a day. Yeah, your morning shot, your night shot. Anyway, by the way, remember how we were told the virus mutates faster than any other virus and how long it takes to come up with a treatment for each strain? Are we supposed to believe treatments are easily and quickly developed like in sci-fi shows and movies? Maybe we should have done the smart thing from the start and thrown Wolverine into the vat so the cure for the apocalypse's contagion was already available. Yeah, speaking of that, where is Wolverine when you need him? He could be useful. Drop him in Kabul, see if he can take care of some business over there. But yeah, right. And you also have studies that need to be done, don't you? So if look, I'm not a medical doctor. This is not medical information. But if I'm talking hypothetically here, you would say, okay, if the vaccines wane around 8 months in, you'd have to do a study, wouldn't you? And give all of the people with the waning antibodies who got the first vaccines back in January, Now that we're 8 months in, it's waning out. You say, okay, perfect. Now it's time to do a trial with those people. And we're going to give a bunch of them shots. And we're going to see if it does anything. And then we're going to test it several months after the 8 months. And then come to a conclusion about their efficacy, because there's been studies and it's been peer reviewed. And we've got a lot of data about it. But we just expired on the 8 months from the first time, and they're saying that it's ready without having done those follow-up studies. So I'm not a scientist, but maybe I'm too unsophisticated. I forgot. I didn't go to Oxford. I forgot. That's why I don't understand this. That's my bad. Over next, we got Soul Viking says, so not only coercion on a personal level, but now increased federal coercion with mandates tied to funding. The concept of autonomy is a human right that cannot be forgotten. It's disgusting. We're going to have to fight for it, I think, on this one, peacefully, politically, but it is slowly eroding away. The government is picking up speed here. LT13 says, nursing homes are petri dishes. I'm sure most had COVID before the vaccines even came out. Funny, vaccinated people are having breakthroughs, but you know darn well we would hear about someone who had COVID getting reinfected. Haven't heard anyone shouting that from the rooftop. Right, yeah, you're nuts, right? All of those are... Joe Biden came out today and said that this was a pandemic of the unvaccinated. That is an out and out lie. That's not true at all, because a lot of people are still catching COVID. That's why they have to do booster shots. He's just full of it, isn't he? All right, let's see what else. Over here, we've got a few more on this segment before we jump in. Paula MK says, in my experience in healthcare, I think that withholding Medicare and Medicaid funding will blow up in the government's face. Most places hate the ridiculous regulatory requirements that come along with that funding. This might be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Provides an excuse to not accept Medicare or Medicaid patients anymore. That's from Paula MK. A lot of doctors are just leaving. They're not going to do the big medicine anymore. They're not doing insurance. They're doing private pay. And they have subscription models where you pay a fee once per month. You cut out the insurance companies and you just cut them all out. And so if that happens, there's going to be some serious repercussions for that throughout the entire country. Okay, we got a couple more. Let's see some of the super chats that came in. Couple of them. Eddie, no, we already got those. Let's see. For some reason, my mouse is not working on the scroll button, so I can't see what the super chats are. Give me 1 second. Okay, so that's not working. Hang on. Okay, super chats over here. Ben Dover super chatted. Beth Coddington, already got that one, I think. Look 2G says, how did our world become so authoritarian so quickly? I was raised with our greatest generation who saw how bad the authoritarian systems work, yet here we are only 3 generations later. I know it's a sad thing. That was from Look to G. The country is snowballing faster than even I would have anticipated. We have, thank you for that, Look 2G. Bumma Lickett says, we Americans should stand up with this ridiculous COVID-related mandates. Biden administration is the Taliban of America, terrorizing and intimidating its citizens. It's a good comment. Sharon says, they follow the science. These are the same genetic science deniers who say that gender and sex organs are mental constructs. And we've got one more from Sergeant Bob says, the Civil War was fought over states' rights. History is a great teacher. Lessons learned, but for the stupidity of so-called students. And we'll take a couple more because I can fly through the last segment. Watcher 45 says, just became a member. Welcome. Says, so if Biden is going to penalize nursing homes that accept federal aid, do you think people on welfare and food assistance programs will be targeted next? Or too much of a political risk? So it's a great question. Now, arguably, you could say that in New York City, no, because they're not on welfare or food assistance. I'm not sure that the courts would go for that, but I don't know. I would say no, but I would have said that the CDC would have never taken your property a year ago or done what they've done. I would have said no, but I never would have thought that any of this stuff would have happened. Here we are. So I don't I can't say no is the problem, which is very scary. All right, we've got Ghost Gunner says, how is Biden allowed to just leave? Trump would have been crucified if he just up and left. Half of me wants them to invoke the 25th and remove the senile old man. The other half thinks Kamala would be even worse, like a lot worse. Yeah, the whole administration is just a dumpster fire at this point. Paula says, the school mandate thing gets me heated. DeSantis never said that masks are forbidden. If the parents want to wear a mask, they can do it. When did freedom become a crime? I used to think you were over-exaggerating on your view that everything is criminalized, but now I'm going to say something you rarely hear from a woman. I was wrong. Whoa! Mark it down. One of the many reasons I love your show. It forces me to re-examine my beliefs. Thank you for all you do, Rob. Keep it up. Thank you, Paula. I'm just kidding with you. First of all, look, I'm with you actually, right? I was in that boat as well. I was sort of saying that these COVID crimes were going to come down, but I didn't think it was going to be this bad. Like they're talking about FBI 5 years for fake vaccination cards and things like that. It's going bananas. So I think we're in the same boat there. Thank you for the comment, Paula. Sergeant Bob says the great Aussies that fought in World War II would turn over in their graves. Right. You would imagine. Tremendous says, probably not going to be a popular comment. I like a lot of what DeSantis and Florida have done, but passing a law saying that school districts can't make their own decisions about masks bothers me. Even though I don't want the kids in the masks in schools, I see similarities between that and law and my Governor Wolf making mandates forcing lockdowns. If I don't like it when Wolf forces it, I shouldn't like it when DeSantis and Florida do it either. I do get there is a difference because Wolf acted completely on his own, while DeSantis simply signed a law that came from the legislature, but it still makes me feel icky. Yeah, I understand your point there, Tremendous, and I also share that, right? There are concerns about using the heavy hand of the government from both directions. We saw this sort of with the CRT stuff, right? A lot of people, CRT is clearly a public issue. It's something that local legislatures should talk about. But when many of the conservative organizations in this country said that we're going to do it by executive order or by legislative mandate, I just said, okay, well, if you're going to make a blanket rule for the entire state, then you're going to have states that make a blanket rule the opposite way, won't you? And so, it goes both ways. So before you use the power, the heavy hand of the government, be very careful with it, which is why I think that most of these issues should be dealt with locally. So I don't think your comment is unpopular at all. I think it's actually very astute and appropriate. We have another one that says, I'm glad I live in Texas where our Governor Abbott stands up with the Biden's administration, yet we are resilient and ever vigilant. That's from Texas. And the last one here says, the Anticus Prime says, just another day, 15 days, just another 15 days to flatten your spirits. Yeah, I know. It's probably going to be another short 15 days. Just make the sacrifice, Vianticus. You don't want to kill grandma, do you? All right, my friends, those were great questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Thanks to the super chats over from Ben Dover also says, this vaccine will turn you into a unicorn, which is very, very beautiful. And I want to thank Look2G and all of you other people for the support and for the chats and for the great questions. We've got one more segment and we're going to fly through it because we're almost out of time. Dog muzzles. Now, sometimes people take a look at these things and maybe they get a little bit excited, like this woman kind of might. Or it's an actual device for a dog that has a very pernicious message. It's like, stop talking, stop spreading your message. It's problematic. This woman received this. Very offensive. Went to her office, and she is Tennessee's top vaccination official. Her name is Dr. Michelle Fiscus. Told state investigators that she received a dog muzzle right in the mail. She thought it was a threat to keep her quiet, which is very offensive. I don't condone that behavior. Now, let's take a little bit closer look because this seems weird. We already saw a similar situation like this with Jussie Smollett, the famous French actor who Dave Chappelle talked about, who had the noose around his neck in Chicago when he was on his way to Subway or something like that. Well, a similar situation might be going on here, but we have to investigate, of course. The background here, Fiscus was fired. This woman was fired because Republicans were mad that she was trying to convince teenagers to get the vaccine. She's a big pro-vaxxer. Republican lawmakers criticized her on multiple fronts, saying that she was highlighting a memo she sent that explains how providers in Tennessee could vaccinate someone or some teenage patients without their parents' approval. Very nice woman. Health Department released a memo last month, said that she was fired for poor interpersonal communication skills, which makes sense, ineffective management, and attempting to steer state money to a nonprofit she founded. So that's an awful person. She denied the allegations in the memos, shared years of sterling performance, claimed she was fired for attempting to do her job well. And so she got this, whatever this is, right? It's a muzzle. And so she's upset about this. All she's trying to do, folks, is just vaccinate your teenagers without you knowing anything about it. So apparently the anti-vaxxers, they didn't like that. So they spoke out. And she was so upset about this that she went and had to talk to Anderson Cooper about it. Here they are. Horrific experience.
So just last week, before you were fired, you received a disturbing Amazon package at your office. What was in it, and what did you think when you received it?
Yes, tell us.
Hi, Anderson. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, the week before I was terminated from the Department of Health, I received a package that contained a dog muzzle. And at first I thought that was a joke and contacted a few friends. And then when no one claimed it, realized that that was something that was sent to me as some kind of a message, I suppose.
Okay, some kind of a message. Well, that's a strange little message there. And, you know, she was pretty well prepared for this segment with Anderson. She's very clever, too, this woman. She's a doctor, by the way. And so this is what she had to say, you know, how she responded to this. Very brave, very, very powerful woman. Here she is.
Yes.
I understand. I think it was your husband who said, or you said something to your husband that he recounted. What was it you said?
I said that they obviously didn't know me because they sent me a size 3, which is for beagles, and I'm obviously a pit bull, which requires a size 6.
Oh, that was so clever. She's very smart, very clever. We have to give that to her. Now, she probably spent about a week writing that, and so she was able to get that out in front of Anderson Cooper. Very excited about her line, but it turns out she bought the thing on Amazon. Oh, don't you hate that? The muzzle that was sent to the Tennessee vaccine expert was bought on an Amazon account. The credit card was in her name. Okay, so I can't say, let me correct that. I can't say that she bought it, right? Obviously, we don't know that for a fact. But it just happens to be on an Amazon account with an American Express card in her name. Here it is. According to NBC News, Dr. Michelle Fiscus claimed she was fired for political reasons, said the dog muzzle was a threat, but it was bought with an American Express card in her name, according to a state investigation that concluded Monday. The report said there is no evidence to indicate the dog muzzle was intended to threaten her. This report came over from Special Agent Mario Vigil, over from Department of Homeland Safety and Security. Here is the Special Investigation Bureau report, so we can take a look at that. This was online somewhere. I forget where it was, but the link is in the slides if you want to get access to it. It is here. It is written by Mario Vigil. This is now, I think, public record. Investigative activity on July 2nd, 2021. Dr. Michelle Fiscus received a suspicious package. That's the investigative activity there. And the file is pretty clear, pretty brief. Says on July 7th, Special Agent Julie McKee and I were assigned to investigate a suspicious package received by Dr. Michelle Fiscus. Went over to her property. She expressed concern to Director Mays, says that a dog muzzle came. Thought that it was intended as a threat. Said that it's probably political in nature. COVID-19 here has everybody mad. I was trying to, jab all of their teenagers without the parents knowing. And so, yeah, this is problematic. People are upset about it. Here's a picture of what it looked like. A silicone basket dog muzzle. So that's what she got here. Looks like nice quality, I guess. It says on July 8th, I met with Dr. Fiscus at her office to discuss the Amazon package. She opened the package when she got back from holiday. The package contained the dog muzzle, no return address, no identifying information about it. Said she didn't order it. She thought it was a joke, but no, it wasn't. Said nope, wasn't a joke. So we think it's a veiled threat now. Takes it over to McKee, asked the doctor what they meant. Doctor says, we think it's a threat. They want us to stop talking about vaccinating people. That's why it's a clever little muzzle, isn't it? Asked her if she had any idea who sent it. She said, well, maybe. Said that she was singled out for this mature minor doctrine, saying that people who are teenagers should be able to be called mature minors. When she put that in place, several people were unhappy with that. This person here is redacted, sent an email. This person sent an email, redacted, unhappy, saying, putting you on notice, we're going to hold you accountable for this. Second email says, hey, Dr. Fiscus, lobbying for the vaccinations is problematic, blah, blah, blah. And we have another one, right? And so what this special agent does is he goes, okay, here's what I did then. Talk to her. She said that some of these people sent some nasty emails to me, upset about my policy. And so this special agent went around and interviewed them all, investigated everything, talked to them, said, okay, I know we got your email. Quick phone call. Did you send her a muzzle? No. Did you send her a muzzle? No. How about you? No. Okay. Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have to go get a warrant and a subpoena from Amazon. So they did. Special agent went here, got this drafted up from Amazon.com, sent that over there. Here, issued on application from Special Agent Mario. Amazon now is communicating back. On August 7th, received the results from the Amazon subpoena, showed 2 different accounts in Dr. Fiscus's name. First account was the account that Dr. Fiscus allowed us to review during our interview with her. The second was the account that the muzzle was purchased on, a little secret account over there. An American Express card listed as the payment method on the first account was an exact number match for the same card on the second Amazon account. The Amex card on both accounts is in the name of Michelle D. Fiscus. Don't you hate it when that happens, when you create a secondary Amazon account and you forget to use a second credit card? Well, she forgot to do it. Amazon responded back, said, I'm an employee of Amazon. Here are all the documents that we got. I declare under penalty of perjury that this is what we've got. Here you go. Take a look at the documents. American Express, Michelle Fiscus. Here's another one. Payment information issuer, American Express. Here's the tail of the card, Michelle Fiscus. We got the 2 different accounts, and we see this is the primary account, and then this is the secondary account. This is the muzzle purchasing account. Account information, Michelle Fiscus. American Express, same card. Here is the actual order of the dog muzzle that they pulled from Amazon on the secondary Amazon account. Ship date, July 1st. Tracking number blocked out so that you can't, so it's going over to Nashville. It was going to her property, to her office building, it looks like. Okay, so all of that now captured. Perfect. Amazon's got it. See exactly when you ordered it. Based on the information that was provided to us via Amazon and on information derived from the interviews, there is no evidence to indicate that the dog muzzle was intended to threaten Dr. Fiscus. And that's the little point. It's like, look, she might have bought that dog muzzle for a lot of reasons. Not to threaten her. She bought it on her secret Amazon account. What else is on that secret Amazon account? The results of this investigation indicate purchases from both accounts were charged to the same American Express credit card. At the time, there appears to be no threat. This case is closed. Now, in her defense, Michelle says, well, look, Axios has now updated their headline to say that I did not include that I sent the muzzle. She posted this on Twitter. She said, it only concluded that my credit card was charged with the incorrect billing address, my state work office, to an Amazon account I didn't know existed. The account was apparently accessed from the state of Washington, where I had never been, by a cell phone using a carrier I've never used. I asked the state for a full unredacted report, and I'm awaiting the response on that. So we'll see if there is any truth to her defense. We'll see all about it. Now, let's take a look at some quick questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com before we wrap up the show for the day. Let's see what we've got here on this segment. We got the Fiscus Muzzle Hoax. Vienticus Primus here says this is all of obviously a publicity stunt to attract attention to her OnlyFans with her muzzle. Oh, no. Want to Know says, why doesn't Biden just require all women to wear burqas to keep them safe from COVID? I'm sure the science proves it. How thoughtful of Biden. Yeah, why not? We have over here, Angie says, she's just trying to stay relevant. Yeah. She is. She's doing a good job of it. She's definitely relevant. Sergeant Bob says, just chiming in on Paula's comment in the last segment about your show causing her to re-examine her prior beliefs. I too share that thought. No longer accepting actions of law enforcement without a question. Thanks for what you were doing. That's from Sergeant Bob. Wow, Bob. Sergeant Bob. Thank you, Sergeant Bob. Look, I really appreciate you being here. It's very nice to have your input and your thoughts and your comments. And same goes for all of you, honestly. I mean, I learned so much from the show. And as much as you might convey that to me, I hope that I'm conveying it to you, that you help change my opinions, right? You help me talk through issues and flesh these things out. And so I'm not being facetious here. I mean it genuinely. I learn a ton here. I have a ton of fun. And so I'm very grateful for this time that we're able to spend together. It feels like I'm sort of, getting a crash course in all of this, not just because of the show prep and the work that I put into preparing the show, but from the conversations that we have. It's like having conversations with like 1,000 people at the same time. It's like an information overload. It's really very interesting. And I can see why it's such a popular format and why it's a better format than what we see in the old traditional media. So thank you for that, Sergeant. And thank you for that, Paula. Great comments. It's Ed says, let's be honest, she's more like a size 20. Oh! You can play at that game. Soul Viking says, her real upset is the muzzle she ordered was pink. They delivered a black one. Good thing it's on Amazon, has easy returns. She can bring it to one of those swinger parties she may enjoy. Oh, I did it. 3 Girly says, are you sure she needed a size 6 or she needed a size 1 for a Chihuahua, a small dog with a big dog syndrome and a big mouth? Not cool with a female dog who wants to inject poison into one of my girlies without permission. Perfect. I love all the dunks. Just really great work. Sergeant Bob says, great detective work by law enforcement. Very good popo. Totally agree with that. And he could probably smell it right on her. He probably walked in and goes, this lady sent that to herself. And then went and got it and nabbed her red-handed. All right, we have NY Renal MD says, shame she got caught doing a juice small yay. She doubled down and made her situation worse. And yeah, she's still on Twitter defending it away. We'll see what goes on there. 3 Girly says, I have a separate account I don't want anyone to know about. Generally, it's for things I don't want my girlies to find out that I ordered. I also don't file false police reports. I hope they prosecute her. They should. I mean, think about how much time and resources went into that. And she was trying to besmirch a very good contingent of this country, people who have some questions about their medical treatment. She's trying to take that away from them. Awful person. Birdie says, Biden wouldn't want women to wear burqas. He wouldn't be able to sniff them. Which is a great point. Look, there are two sides to every coin. Some ideas you have to really think through. And you helped us do that there, Birdie. I appreciate that. All right, my friends, that is it from me for the day. Let's wrap up the show with a great new welcome to our new members over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. You know who you are. Big welcomes to ZW Troll, who signed up recently along with Deadmau 5. We've got Refanilator. We've got Juta MKit 2, Daversec, Shifty Shift 503 Unlimited, Mary B 585, and The Real Patriot. Love it. We've got another super chat just came in from Michael MJL says, love your new show format, man. You make my day. Thank you, Michael. You make my day, brother. I appreciate you being here and thank you for that nice super chat support. If you're not already a member over there, you can sign up and join us on our next monthly Locals meetup via Zoom taking place Saturday, August 28th, 10 days from now, where we're going to have a lot to talk about. Totally free if you're a supporter over there. It should be a 1 hour, just a quick little community session, get to know each other, put some names to faces, and just kind of check in, see people from around the world. It's a lot of fun. So it's at 7 to 8 p.m. Saturday, August 28th. I really look forward to seeing you there. That, my friends, is it for me for the day. We're going to wrap it up right here. Be back same time, same place tomorrow to do it all again and have a lot of fun. I hope you can join us. 4 p.m. Arizona time, 5 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. on the East Coast for that one Florida man. Everybody have a tremendous evening. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow.